Robert Duvall once called a certain actor the enemy of actors, and said his movies were awful. That's how strong his dislike was. In fact, Duvall hated this Hollywood star so much that he turned down millions of dollars just to avoid working with him. The feud between them got so serious that even legendary actor John Wayne had to step in to calm things down. When people asked Duvall if he'd ever work with that actor again, he replied with no hesitation, "Never. I don't care if I never do." The person Duvall hated working with the most is someone that would truly surprise many people. Robert Duvall was born on January 5, 1931, in San Diego, California. His family background was a mix of strong military tradition and artistic roots. His mother, Mildred, had a love for acting and often performed in local theater. On her side of the family, Duvall was related to Confederate General Robert E. Lee, which later influenced one of his famous film roles. His father, William Duvall, was a highly respected officer in the U.S. Navy and became a captain at the young age of 39. Growing up in a military household meant living with strict discipline and structure. The family moved around a lot, staying on naval bases in different states such as Maryland, Rhode Island, and Virginia. Most of Robert's childhood was spent in Annapolis, Maryland. While his father hoped Robert would follow in his footsteps and join the Navy, Robert had other plans. He admitted that he wasn't great at most school subjects, but he had a natural talent for acting. His interest in acting started when he attended Severn School in Maryland and continued at the Principia School in Missouri. After finishing high school, he followed his passion and studied drama at Principia College in Illinois, where he graduated in 1953. But before he could dive into acting full-time, life took another turn. That same year, he joined the Army and served for about a year, just after the Korean War. He was stationed at Camp Gordon in Georgia and reached the rank of Private First Class. He often joked about not being very good at military life. However, something meaningful happened during his time in the Army. He took part in a local theater production of a play called Room Service, which reminded him of how much he loved acting. In 1955, he made a bold decision. He moved to New York City to study acting seriously at the neighborhood playhouse school of the theater, which taught the Sanford Meisner technique, a method that focused on being emotionally truthful and natural on stage. He wasn't alone in his journey. His classmates included future stars like Dustin Hoffman, Gene Hackman, and James Caan. They were all young, broke, and passionate. Life in New York was tough. Duvall took on many odd jobs to support himself, like sorting mail, working retail, and even driving trucks. These jobs didn't involve acting, but they gave him insight into everyday people, something that later helped him bring more realism to his roles. He shared small apartments with Hoffman and Hackman, and sometimes they even shared the same fold-out couch. Despite the hardships, they kept going. Years later, all three would become Hollywood legends with multiple Academy Award nominations and wins. Duvall's breakthrough came from his theater work. His role in The Midnight Caller got him noticed, and that led to more serious stage roles, including a powerful performance in A View from the Bridge, which earned him an Obie Award in 1965. But it was his role in the 1962 film To Kill a Mockingbird that made him known to the world. He played Boo Radley, a quiet and mysterious character who doesn't speak at all, but Duvall made the role unforgettable with his subtle expressions and presence. He even stayed out of the sunlight for weeks and dyed his hair blonde to match Boo's ghost-like appearance. His performance didn't need any dialogue to leave a lasting impression. Originally, he had one line in the film, but it was cut. Still, that silent role became one of the most memorable parts of the movie. Duvall's role as Tom Hagen in the Godfather series became iconic. Tom Hagen was more than just the Corleone family's lawyer. He was a close advisor, the calm and logical one who used words instead of violence. Although adopted by Vito Corleone, his background made him feel like an outsider in the family. While others like Sonny or Michael acted with emotion, Hagen was thoughtful and strategic. Duvall's performance stood out in the 1972 film, and he was central to many key decisions in the story. In one famous scene, Hagen goes to Hollywood to ask producer Jack Woltz to cast Johnny Fontaine in a film. When the polite request is ignored, the Corleone family makes a brutal point. Woltz wakes up with a horse's head in his bed. Hagen didn't deliver the threat himself, but he made sure the message got through. In The Godfather Part 2, Hagen's role expanded. After an attempt on Michael's life, Hagen became acting Don. But as Michael became more ruthless, he began to push Hagen out. Duvall showed this slow separation in subtle ways. Even though Hagen stayed loyal, he no longer agreed with everything Michael did. Duvall was nominated for an Oscar for his role in The Godfather, but didn't win. Still, his quiet and composed performance made a huge impact. When The Godfather Part 3 was announced, fans expected him to return. But the studio offered Al Pacino $8 million and Duvall much less. Duvall wasn't expecting the same pay, but when he saw the massive difference, he refused. If Pacino had made twice as much, he said it would have been okay. But 3 or 4 times more was just too much. As a result, his character was written out of the film. They claimed Tom Hagen had died off-screen and brought in a new lawyer, B.J. Harrison, played by George Hamilton. But fans and critics agreed, it wasn't the same without Duvall. Even director Francis Ford Coppola admitted the film lost an important element. Originally, the story was going to explore Michael and Hagen's strained relationship, possibly a power struggle. With Hagen gone, that idea was dropped, and many believe the movie suffered because of it. Though he didn't return for the third film, Duvall often shared behind-the-scenes stories from the earlier movies. One famous story involved Marlon Brando, who didn't like memorizing lines. Brando used cue cards, sometimes taping them to props or even to Duvall's chest. Brando believed it helped him stay in the moment, and even though some thought it was lazy, his performance as Vito Corleone became legendary. He won an Oscar for it, though he famously refused to accept the award. Duvall played many unforgettable characters. In Apocalypse Now, he was Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore, a fearless, eccentric officer who loved the chaos of war. His line, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning," became one of the most quoted lines in film history. Despite only appearing in a few scenes, Duvall made Kilgore one of the most memorable characters in the movie. He showed the madness of war with both charm and horror. That same year, he played a completely different military man in The Great Santini, a strict Marine pilot who brought his military mindset home and hurt his family emotionally. Duvall gave the character depth by showing small moments of care underneath all the toughness. His performance earned him another Oscar nomination. Later, in Tender Mercies, he played Max Sledge, a washed-up country singer trying to rebuild his life. Duvall traveled across Texas to prepare and even sang all the songs himself. One of the saddest moments in the film is when Max finally starts to reconnect with his daughter, but she tragically dies in a car crash. The movie was quiet and emotional, and Duvall gave one of his most personal performances. He won an Oscar for it. Though the film wasn't a huge hit, it became loved for its honesty. Years later, Duvall put his heart and soul into The Apostle, a film he wrote, directed, and funded himself. No studio wanted to make it, but he believed in the story. He played a Pentecostal preacher named Sonny who made mistakes but tried to start over. Many scenes featured real churchgoers, which gave the movie an authentic feel. Duvall never made the character a stereotype. Sonny was both inspiring and deeply flawed. One powerful moment shows him changing a racist man's heart through kindness and preaching. Duvall was nominated for another Oscar, and the film was praised for its raw look at faith and redemption. He once said that preaching is one of America's great art forms, and in The Apostle, he brought that idea to life. Robert Duvall's life off-screen has been just as full of ups and downs. He's been married 4 times, and each relationship has been a part of his story. His first wife, Barbara Benjamin, was a former dancer on the Jackie Gleason Show. They met while he was filming To Kill a Mockingbird, starting the first chapter of his long and eventful personal journey. When Robert Duvall married Barbara in 1964, she already had 2 daughters, Nancy and Susan, from a past relationship. At that time, Duvall was still trying to build his career in Hollywood. But soon, he found success with movies like The Godfather, which made him famous. With fame came pressure, and sadly, their marriage ended in 1975. Duvall doesn't talk much about those years, but they were clearly a time of learning and growth for him. Barbara passed away many years later, in 2019, in New York City. 7 years after his first divorce, in 1982, Duvall married again. This time it was to actress Gail Youngs. She came from a talented family of actors, including her siblings John Savage, Robin Young, and Jim Youngs. Duvall and Gail worked together on the movie Tender Mercies, which won him an Academy Award. Their shared love for acting brought them closer, but it wasn't enough to keep the relationship strong. By 1986, they had separated. Duvall once said he would never marry an actress, but he made an exception for Gail. Still, working in the same profession may have caused challenges in their marriage. In 1991, Duvall got married for the third time, this time to Sharon Brophy, a professional dancer. They both loved dancing, especially the Argentine tango, and their shared passion brought them close. Sharon even became his tango teacher. But even this special connection wasn't strong enough to keep the marriage going. They divorced in 1996. After their split, Sharon stayed away from the public eye, unlike Duvall's earlier wives. That same year, something unexpected happened. Duvall met Luciana Pedraza, an Argentine actress and filmmaker. She didn't know who he was at first and invited him to a party. Despite the large age difference, 41 years, they quickly became close. Luciana, born in 1972, was the oldest of 5 sisters and had earned a business degree before entering the film world. Over time, she and Duvall worked on films together like Assassination Tango and Wild Horses. Their love for tango also became a big part of their relationship. They got married in 2005 and have stayed together ever since. Besides movies and dancing, they also started a charity called the Robert Duvall Children's Fund, which helps children and families in need, especially in Argentina. Even though Duvall has been married 4 times, he never had any children. He rarely talks about it, but once joked in an interview that he was shooting blanks. He didn't explain further, and he never showed regret about not becoming a father. While his personal life had its ups and downs, Duvall continued building a great career. One of his most loved performances came in the 1989 miniseries Lonesome Dove. He played Gus McCrae, a retired Texas Ranger who goes on one last cattle drive with his old friend, played by Tommy Lee Jones. The show was a massive hit. Over 26 million people watched it across 4 nights. Duvall brought warmth and humor to Gus's character, making him feel real and relatable. He later said Gus was his favorite role, even more than his part in The Godfather. The miniseries won several awards, including 7 Emmys. Although Duvall didn't win Best Actor, James Woods did. He did win a Golden Globe. Gus's death in the series was both emotional and memorable, especially his line, "It ain't about dying, Woodrow. It's about living." Critics praised Duvall for giving the character depth and soul. Gus wasn't just a cowboy, he felt like a real person. In the early 1990s, Duvall took on some very challenging historical roles. In 1992, he played Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin in an HBO movie about Stalin's rise to power. The film was shot in Russia, just before the Soviet Union collapsed, adding a layer of realism. Duvall prepared intensely for the role by watching old videos and speaking with historians. He called Stalin a street gangster who ruled through fear. His performance earned him another Golden Globe. Then, in 1996, Duvall played Adolf Eichmann, one of the masterminds of the Holocaust, in the film The Man Who Captured Eichmann. The movie showed how Eichmann was captured in Argentina and brought to trial in Israel. Duvall portrayed him not as a monster, but as a man who carried out evil in a cold and emotionless way. His performance was haunting and powerful and earned him another Emmy nomination. Even as he got older, Duvall didn't stop taking on serious and meaningful roles. In 1998, he starred in a civil action as Jerome Fokker, a clever lawyer defending companies accused of polluting a town's water. Duvall didn't play him as a bad guy, just as a man doing his job. That role earned him another Oscar nomination. In 2009, he played Felix Bush in Get Low, a mysterious man in 1930s Tennessee who wants to throw his own funeral while he's still alive. The story was about guilt, secrets, and seeking forgiveness. Many critics said it was one of Duvall's best performances. Robert Duvall is known not only for his powerful acting but also for being brutally honest. He often spoke his mind, even if it upset people in the film industry. Over the years, he built a reputation for having high standards and little patience for people he didn't respect. One of the people he strongly criticized was famous director Stanley Kubrick. In an interview, Duvall called Kubrick an actor's enemy, and said the acting in his famous movies like The Shining and A Clockwork Orange was terrible. Not because of the actors, but because of Kubrick's demanding style. He questioned how a director could ask for dozens of takes and still know which one was the best. For Duvall, that kind of perfectionism damaged good acting. Duvall didn't only criticize directors from the past. In the same interview, when someone mentioned modern director David Fincher, Duvall acted like he didn't know who he was. When he realized who they were talking about, he admitted he once turned down a role in Seven. He wasn't sure why, but said maybe it was because of Fincher's style, it just didn't feel right to him. He also talked about having a tough time on the set of True Grit with director Henry Hathaway. Their styles didn't match, and things got so tense that actor John Wayne had to step in and tell Duvall to back off, or risk getting punched. Clearly, the set was not a peaceful place. Because of all this, Duvall got a reputation for being difficult. But he said that wasn't true, not with the directors he respected. He explained that great directors like George Lucas, Francis Ford Coppola, and Ulu Grossbard never had any issues with him. The problems only came when he felt the director wasn't good enough. Even with directors he liked, there were challenges. Duvall respected Coppola but refused to be in The Godfather Part 3 because he wasn't happy with how much less he was being paid compared to Al Pacino. He joked that he was okay with Pacino being paid twice as much, but not 4 times more. He also shared a funny story that when Coppola visited him to talk about the movie, he seemed more interested in Duvall's mother's crab cake recipe than in convincing him to return to the film. Duvall once admired director Steven Spielberg and praised Saving Private Ryan, especially its realistic opening scene. But later, their relationship soured. When Spielberg visited Cuba and met Fidel Castro, Duvall was angry. He called Castro a murderer and said Spielberg should not have acted like a diplomat. Duvall even said he would never work with Spielberg's company, DreamWorks, again, and he meant it. For Duvall, acting has always been about giving his best and not accepting anything less. He didn't care if people liked his honesty or not. He never pretended to be someone he wasn't. After more than 60 years in Hollywood, Robert Duvall's bold confessions have broken the image of the polite, easygoing movie star. From walking away from The Godfather Part 3 over money to clashing with directors like Stanley Kubrick and Henry Hathaway, one thing is clear: Duvall always stood by his values. Even if it meant losing roles or making enemies, he refused to compromise. He once said, "The best directors never had a problem with me," suggesting that the rest simply weren't good enough. Some people say he was difficult. Others say he just demanded excellence. Whatever the case, Robert Duvall is a rare kind of star, one who always chose his principles over paychecks. Thanks for watching. Keep it and stay tuned.